I'm Mr. Ramsey, saving Western civilization, one student at a time. Today we're going to discuss the causes of the First World War. Now, historians would argue that probably there are four major causes, long-term causes, that caused the war. And we're going to probably focus on just one, depending on how long the video takes. But the major cause of the war happened on June 28, 1914, when Archduke Francis Ferdinand was assassinated by the Serbian nationalist Galio Princip. So that's the major cause of the war. That's the direct cause of the war. But there are four underlying causes that allowed that event to happen. And one of those major ones is European rivalries or imperialism. So I don't know if you remember, but countries had a race to get colonies in the 1880s and 1870s. It actually goes back before that, but really it hit the mark in the 1880s when our good friend Otto von Bismarck called a council, a conference, as you were, called the Berlin Conference of 1884. He called one actually in 1878 too, which also deals with the European rivalries. But those two conferences, the one in 1878 and the one in 1884, the reason why he called those conferences is because he just doesn't want his new German empire to be split apart, and he could see that a world war would split that empire apart. The one in the conference in Berlin in 1878 was dealing with the Balkans, and the conference in 1884 dealt with Africa. And so you have these European rivals, or European countries, becoming rivals that used to not be rivals. So, for example, if you know, throughout the history, from probably the 1300s to the 1900s, Germany and England were never rivals. They're actually usually allies. It was always France and Germany, aka the Holy Roman Empire, that were rivals. England and France were also usually your known rivals. And then, of course, France and Austria were rivals as well. Okay? But that all changes in the modern era because of the fact that you have a race for colonies, and you could or land or imperialism, whatever you want to call the word, that they want to have land and have natural resources, okay, which cause industrialization. So some of the European rivals that you need to be focused on is, first of all, you have, of course, British. The British has the empire where the sun never sets, and they want to make sure that they can maintain their sea routes to that empire, so their trade routes, to keep those open. So they're going to be focused on Egypt, make sure the Suez Canal is open, and they want to make sure that no one rivals them in their sea power, which is going to cause some problems because Kaiser Wilhelm II also wants to build a navy, which will rival Germany, which is going to cause friction between the British Empire and the German Empire. Then you have the French, and the French are also have in the 1880s taken they started off in the 1830s with taking Algeria, and then in the 1880s they're going to basically have North Africa, all right, Northwest Africa. They're going to have that whole region, Algeria, part of Morocco, basically the Sahara Desert. That's their land, okay? And Morocco becomes a place of contention because of the fact that when the French involved themselves in Morocco, they talked to every single European power pretty much, except, of course, Germany. And they don't want to consult Germany because they have a major disliking for Germany. And it goes back to the Franco-Prussian War, in which they lost. Okay, and then Germany, their imperial ambitions is to have economic control of the what is now or used to be known as the Ottoman Empire of the Balkan region. They just want economic control. They don't want territorial control. And as the Ottoman Empire is collapsing, the Balkan region is becoming more unstable, and so they want to make sure that their trade routes in that region are not disrupted. Okay? And then you have Austria-Hungary. And Austria-Hungary, as you learned in the 1860s, 1866 to be precise, they were kicked out of the German Empire. And so they're going to expand also in the Balkans, which is going to cause friction for a couple of things. It's going to cause friction with the Ottoman Empire. It's going to cause friction with the Russian Empire. It's going to also cause friction with Slavic nations in that region, especially a country called Serbia, which brings us back to June 28th, 1914. And finally, we have, there's a whole bunch of other countries, but we can also talk about Russia. And Russia also has an interest in the Balkans. And their goal has always been, since Peter the Great, to have a warm water port. And they're looking on the southwest border, because their ultimate really goal, because they think themselves as the third Rome, their ultimate goal is to take over the Bosporus Strait and the Dardanelles, okay? And they want that region, and actually they've been wanting that region for quite some time, and they want to actually probably take over Constantinople or Istanbul. So you have that imperial rivalry as well. So you have rivalries in the Balkans, you have rivalries in Africa, you have rivalries in Asia. And matter of fact, Russia, to name the rivalry in Asia, they just lost the war with Japan in 1905, but they still want a piece of Manchuria. So that's some of the rivalries that are going on, and so that's we'll stop here, and then we'll talk about nationalism tomorrow.